BD, and then a little bit of time in elementary school. It's okay, Lily, and I get it.
Yeah. I'm Lindsay Dodderwhite. I have taught first through third grade in the regular classroom, and then last year moved to becoming a gifted itinerant teacher. I service kindergarten through fifth grade students at 4 different elementary schools, Monday through Thursday. And then on Fridays, I work out of the gifted office at Camp Edwards, planning professional development, or are out at other schools that are not technically assigned to me, helping with identification or teacher professional development as well.
And my name is Tiffany Morrison. Someone said they couldn't hear me, so hopefully you can hear me better now. I am also a gifted itinerant teacher, and I work at 4 schools. And we're excited for you to be here.
Alrighty.
Okay. I think we're getting real close to not having to keep saying this, but you are required to do 2 one-hour sessions within the 3 hours you're registered for on PD Central. If you want to do the 3rd hour, unfortunately, we were only approved for 2 credit hours, and you can be an overachiever and come back, or if this is your last session today, you can be done. We really encourage you to come back, though, and hear Colin, because he's going to be pretty fantastic. We have norms, like we've been saying all week, but if you're just joining us, I want to make sure you get them as well. We want you to be present. We've had some great conversation. I see Coletta back. I love it. So she's been really powerful voice in our presentations. So we love that. We want you to participate, and we want you to respect perspectives and learn, and hopefully take something back that you can use when you start with your students in August. So if you don't mind, we've kind of told you who we are. If you will use the chat and go ahead and tell us your name and position in JCPS so we can see who we've got today. Hey, JJ. Oh, excuse me. No, I've seen Hawthorne, Highland.
We got a lot of middle school, high school today. I love it.
Ooh, Central, yay. Oh, good.
Hey, Christy.
Oh, Kate's in here. Hey, Kate from Mazik. Good to see you. I'm glad you're here. I heard the Kentucky Go Digital Conference was fantastic, so I'm sorry I missed it.
Oh, it was. I'm sorry I had to pick.
That's okay. Thank you guys so much. So all of the ideas that we are sharing with you today came from this awesome book, and we wanted to make sure you have access to our information. It's called Sparking Student Creativity, Practical Ways to Promote Innovative Thinking and Problem Solving. You can kind of see, I'm going to hold it up. It's very thin, 40 grab and go. Everything she says is practical, and as a classroom teacher, just less than a year ago, this is the kind of stuff that I wanted. It was less than 20 bucks on Amazon, and it's on Proofrock. It's in a couple of spots. We all know how to find books, so I highly recommend it for you. And someone told me yesterday you can even buy it on your Kindle.
Oh, we have somebody from our book study.
Oh, good. Well, she's going to be very familiar with these strategies.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah, sorry. It was like my internet was cutting out. So in our chat box, we would love for you to tell us your comfort level of teaching creativity in the classroom, getting up there in those 4s, at least because you're getting a lot more familiar. But just, what's your comfort level? And You do not have to do the second part about how you would define creativity because we're going to kind of tell you. So.
And ladies, I'm glad to see our numbers are getting higher. If you've been with us all week, we are presenting new strategies. Some of the information will be repeated in case you're new, but I like that we're up in the 4s and 5s. When we started on Monday, we had a lot of 2s and 3s.
Awesome.
Can we remind you to put everything on mute unless we ask you to participate? Thank you.
All right, and then I also just linked all of our slide links to I'll get it out in a second. I just linked all of our links in the chat box for our presentation. So if you need to go there, get a walk-in sheet or any of those things, they're right there.
Creativity. If you've been with us earlier in the week, you've already heard these, but for our new people, we like to start with this, so to kind of clear up some misconceptions. So a lot of times people confuse creativity and those that are artistic. They're not synonymous, and you don't have to be both. You can be artistic with no creativity, and you can be creative with no artistic talent, or you can have both. And so a lot of times when we're identifying students for gifted creativity, oftentimes we get people who are really identifying art giftedness. And so we want to be clear that creativity, while it can be tied into art, does not have to be. Another one is that creativity does not have, those that are gifted in creativity do not have to be serviced separately from like your core content areas of reading, math, science, social studies, writing, and so on. You can intertwine creativity into just about any core content area. A lot of times when we think of creativity, we're thinking about the originality portion of creativity, those novel or new ideas. And creativity goes beyond that. So we're going to talk about that in just a second. And then a lot of times people think that certain careers or subject areas have no room for creativity. And we're going to show you that that's just not true, and that creativity is a big part of scientists and mathematicians and so on. So starting with the definition of creativity in the KDE law, it means having potential or ability to perform at a high level in creative thinking and divergent approaches to conventional tasks. This may manifest itself through innovation, creative reasoning, imaginations, or solving problems in new or unique ways. And so there's 4 main parts or components of creativity. The first is fluency, and this is the ability to come up with many ideas. And in this, we're going to do a couple of practice activities with these 4 in just a second. But this is simply just concerned with how many ideas you can come up with. Flexibility is being able to come up with different types of ideas. So this one isn't as concerned about the mere number of ideas, but the different ideas that you can do. Originality is those outside of the box thinkers who's coming up with unusual or novel ideas that no one else is thinking of. And then the last one is elaboration. So being able to add on to or add details to already existing ideas.
Okay, so we are going, first of all, if you have a scratch paper or an open document, you're going to need those just for our next few activities. The first one is one of my favorite ones, and we use this as a creativity screener. So you're going to get a minute to list all the ways your life would change if you woke up with 5 arms instead of 2. Okay, so I saw like a head roll over there.
I
know. So with your scratch paper, when the timer starts, how would your life change if you had 5 arms instead of 2? All right, ready? Go.
Lindsay, don't forget you have to start the timer.
Oh,
you're
sorry.
in charge. And you all are going to get a little longer than a minute now. Andrea's already making her list. She's going to get more laundry folded. That's a good one. She's thinking practically. And you're making this list on scrap paper. You're more than welcome to type some of your ideas in the chat, but you're supposed to be trying to generate as many ideas as you can. I'm with Michelle. I was thinking I'd have to get a whole new wardrobe. Tube top. We'd have to adjust the JCPS dress code then.
Okay, stop. And if in the chat box, you will just count how many different ideas you came up with, and in the chat box, type the number of ideas you came up with.
11, 7, 5. Look at all these numbers. We've got some funny people today.
More wine glasses.
Yes, Leah.
All right. So again, with fluency, the goal is to try to come up with as many ideas as you can. So we have some people that got up to like 12 ideas. So you would score high in fluency.
And something else I want to point out, Patty, the author recommends that you use this terminology, particularly with your gifted kids. Your GI kids would benefit from these strategies, your specific academic students, and of course, your creatively gifted students. And I think all kids would love this. And so you want to say, today we're going to be using our flexibility thinking. And she does want you to teach them that metacognitive process so we can all become aware where our strengths and creativity are and where our weaknesses are.
All right, and our next one is going to be in flexibility. Now, flexibility is a little bit more challenging to like judge when you're looking at what the students have done. But for this flexibility practice, what we're going to do is how many different uses can you list for a paper clip? So on your scratch paper, you're going to have a minute. How many different uses for your paper clip?
And are you ready?
And Mark, that's something to just notice about your own thinking. I tend to think that too. I go to problems instead of looking at what would make it, having those 5 arms could be very positive. Thank you for that.
All right, stop. Now, when you're thinking about flexibility, you're thinking about the different categories that you came up with. So, for example, maybe you came up with things that had to do with it being used as a tool. That would be a separate category or idea, or art piece, or jewelry, or support. So, if any of yours, when you count these, it's going to be the different categories or different types of ideas that you came up with. So if you said it could be used for like a fishing hook, plus you said it could be used to like clean out your reel, those are kind of in the same category because you're using them as something to either deal with fishing or type of tool within fishing.
And it's not really about the label of the category. We want you to just see that those are both uses, you could call it, or tools. And a lot of times kids say earrings. So that's not a use. That's a piece of jewelry. It's a little bit different.
So if you feel comfortable, count which categories, how many categories you think you have, and just put that number in the text box. And this number will be usually lower for most people because we tend to have put them in the same categories. So
Kimberly had 7. Man, she's very flexible. You go, girl.
And this
That's
one is oh, go ahead, Jenny.
Nothing. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say this one is usually difficult for kids because they can come up with a lot of ideas, but they're usually very similar. And so this is a good one to practice to improve on in students.
And Jennifer, I'm with you. This is my weakest area in creativity, and I tend to think of the same types of ideas. So when I did this myself, all of mine were tools except for one. So I didn't have a lot of flexibility either.
All right, next up, we're going to do an originality practice. This is very similar to one of our creativity screeners that we do when working on identification. There is one screener where it is a whole page of circles, and we give kids 5 to 10 minutes to create whatever they wish out of these circles. And so what we're going to have you do to practice is for 1 minute, draw a circle on your piece of scrap paper. And your goal is to add on to the circle to come up with the most original or unique way to use that circle to create something else. All right, and here we go.
I can't wait to see this one.
Yeah. Ten more seconds. And stop. If anyone is willing to turn on or show their piece of paper on the camera, if you'll just hold it up to the camera so that we can check out some of the things you created.
Oh, look at Lillian's. It's so fun. Kate, I love it. I wish I could see everyone here. It's hard. I don't know how to do that on Google yet. Lillian, it's beautiful, your snowman. Carolyn, am I saying your name right? It's so neat.
I love it. And so when we do this with kids, it's a whole page of circles, and a lot more time. And we're looking at all the different ideas they come up with, as well as like some of your really creative kids will use multiple circles together to create something. And so that's really cool. All right, moving on to elaboration.
Okay. And so this is the wording from our keynote, who will be back this afternoon, Colin Seal, in his book. And critical thinking, we all know, is the same level as creativity. So a lot of his research and suggestions fall right in nicely with creativity. So we want you, again, to elaborate on which wrong is more right. And I know that wording is weird, and I think it's intentional because you want to give kids some thought process. Math kids tend to get algorithms like crazy, and they can do it all day long. Through high school, they know it all. But if you ask them, what does this mean and how do you apply it to the real world, we tend to struggle and argue. We want them to be able to argue like a good mathematician. And so let's look at our problem. Sula had 8 apples. Her mother returned from an apple orchard with 48 apples and gave all of them to Sula. How many apples does Sula now have? And I gave you person A and B's answers. And then I want you to look at the more detail. I want you to know, just for clarification, this was hard on me. The 8 on the first problem is supposed to be underneath the 4. And the 8 on the second problem is supposed to be underneath the 8. So it's hard to see that lined up. And I'm going to give you 1 minute to explain on a piece of paper or have it ready to share which wrong is more right. And for math teachers, this would be an excellent warm-up. I think in inquiry-based, you could do social studies and think about which wrong is more right. I think there's 100 ways you could go. I'll be quiet. Yes, Lillian, you can just insert video on slides, and you can, every timer I've ever searched for pops up. Oh, Rebecca's already got an answer. I'm going to have to go to my chat. Oh, I see some. All right, I see the first one because it sets up the problem correctly. That's from Mark. Rebecca says A, because they understand what to do, but added incorrectly. Michelle, B, because she knew to put the 8 in the ones column. So see, right here, think about the discussions you could have with your kids about this. Here's the beautiful part. There's no wrong answer. So that encourages kids who are sometimes not maybe math savvy to be willing to share, because there isn't a wrong answer. Now, your mathematically gifted kids, this might make them pull their hair out. But your kids who are creatively thinking or maybe underrepresented and have been overshadowed by other kids, this is an area where they shine. All they have to do is argue. And that's kind of what they do from I'm learning about cultures at home. So this lends itself nicely to helping in that area as well. My personal opinion is the adding one, because from a mathematical computation consideration, there needs to be more. Now she's way off on the amount, but at least Sula, person A, knew to add those two numbers. Whereas personally, I think that they got the whole computation wrong, subtracting. And I think it's interesting that some of you said the opposite, because she at least knew to put the ones in the ones column. So it's given me new things to think about. Would anyone else like to unmute and share? And a lot of you are typing it in. Feel free. And look, Ida says either. I think that's neat. What a great way. What a great answer. And Kelly, I'm with you. All right, let's get moving. And so now we've just practiced some of the strategies, and now we're just going to give you some of the things that Drapue suggests in her book. And the first one is a very easy one. I would almost say you could do it on the fly. And she calls them starter phrases. And so they're easy to use. It targets all 4 areas of creativity. You can substitute for an existing verb, and it can be used with simple and very complex content. And so even in kindergarten, just to help, sometimes I forget to acknowledge the little people, you could show them 3 triangles and then a square, and really get them thinking about which one belongs, and have them have discussions and make me introduce color. I've seen it done in a million ways. So let's look at some examples. Here are some starter phrases. I'm not going to read all of these to you. I'm just going to highlight the ones I like. Under fluency, I like other ways to do things. I think that's neat. I like new ways to do things. Under flexibility, what might happen if I'm an ELA teacher, so looking at the ending of the story or looking at character development. What if the character had been this personality? You can really start getting into some in-depth conversations about character development and character analyzation there. Originality is always hard for kids, and so invent, one of a kind. And then, of course, elaboration is also an ELA teacher's friend. Build upon this sentence, add to it, use your science jargon to build upon, use your mathematical terms to enhance, all of those things. And then this one is probably my second favorite. I shared my favorite yesterday, but I think little kids and I think middle school kids would have fun. And high school, I would have to hear some high school opinions, but I think they could do it. It's called Voice Changes. It's targeting flexibility. It enhances communication skills, so it's great for our ELL kids who show strength in that area and not always in written form. So it's a great spot for you to look there. And you can help students master facts and the process of learning. And then it's directing the student's attention to what they're hearing. I taught a visually impaired student, and she used to tease me and say, "Miss Stipp, you say look a lot." So I had to work on my own vocabulary and even teaching through a different lens because I see first and she doesn't. So that was fun. And then let's look at a classroom example. So in a persuasive writing unit, students share their writing with others. They instruct them to maybe change their voice if for the counterclaim, or maybe during dialogue, or the thesis if you're in high school and you're using that term. So I think kids could do it. And then, of course, dividing fractions. Students work in groups or pairs to explain the process to each other, and they have to change their voice for different steps in the problem. Think about how silly and fun that could be with kids. And so let's go ahead, and I'm going to set the timer for 3 minutes, and now we want you to apply this. So we want you to go to our Jamboard link. We'll put it in the chat box again, just to keep you with us. Thank you. And go ahead and type in, so we keep this, and you can come back to it later on ways you might use starter phrases or voice changes in the classroom. And I'm going to set 3 minutes. You might not all be able to get in. I've been told the Jamboard cuts off at a certain number, so it's okay. You can type it also into our chat box.
I think it's 50, so we might be good today.
Oh, good.
As long as you and
Tiffany
don't go in.
Okay. Will you click on it so we can see, Lindsay?
Oh, yeah.
Thanks. Kate's in there. She's super techie. Kelly, great. Thank you. And you're on pages 1 and 2 for this first round of sharing. Ooh, Coletta. This is a great tool if you've never seen a digital tool. And there's so much when I see this that I feel like I could do when I was in the classroom. So we just wanted to model that as well. Oh, I like it. Main idea and supporting detail. Yes.
Here's some more.
I would love to use the voice changer. Think the kids would get into it for sure. I think you could use science to describe, ooh, the steps in the cycle. I love it. Or the butterfly. I know they were into that when I was in elementary school. That's a good one. And think about like Flipgrid and some of your technology tools. You could have them creating even on their own and going into Flipgrid and creating 90 seconds videos of the cycle of a butterfly. And they have to use different voices. I think they would go crazy over that.
And then somebody talked about, I like this character, changing voices for characters based on their like motivations or their tactics.
Mm-hmm.
You could even have like use like Screencastify. Like the kids can do Screencastify Master Junior now, and you could have like a slide up, and then they could use their voices and present it from Screencastify. So,
all right, I think we should move on and let them go in there at their own pace for time's sake, don't you, ladies?
yes.
Okay.
All right, next up we have generate and elaborate. Clearly this one targets elaboration mostly, but also originality. This is a good strategy to use if you are either reteaching or reinforcing content knowledge. And then also it really helps expand students' vocabulary around a topic. And so they start by imagining the content that you are studying. And then the next step is they generate a list of words associated with the concept. And then they choose one word from the list to elaborate on. This is a really good strategy to do as a pre-assessment and post-assessment. So if you're getting ready to start a certain content or topic, having them do this at the beginning and then at the end to see how their vocabulary and background knowledge or content knowledge has changed. And so just a couple of examples in ELA, when students are reading a text, they might think about the main idea or theme and generate a list of words that they associate with that theme or that main idea. I also like using it if I'm doing lit circles or book clubs for each chapter for them to kind of keep track of what's important from each chapter. And then they pick one that they found especially powerful and connect it to the theme or main idea or overarching concept. In social studies, maybe you're working with diversity. And so one extension that we thought was really cool with this one that really gets those creative juices flowing is to create word clouds. We have it linked. There's a word cloud creating site that you can use, but then students can make decisions about what colors, what fonts, the shape of the layout. That way they can show dramatic effects or different emotions or things associated. So color choices and things like that can really help them show what's most important or has certain emotions tied to it. Next up is connect and solve. I find this one is very tricky for kids, but it really stretches that creative thinking. In this one, we're targeting the fluency and flexibility. So this forces kids to make connections or associations between random words, and then they use those words to solve a problem within the content. So kind of the steps of this strategy is the whole class generates a list of nouns, and this is not tied to the content at all. They just generate a list of nouns. Next, small groups are assigned a noun. You can do this different ways. They can pick their own noun. Groups can assign each other nouns. You could put all your nouns on a piece of paper, put them in a basket, have them draw one. And then based on the noun that they drew, they generate characteristics of that noun. Then small groups generate connections between their noun and the lesson topic. And in just a second, I'm going to show you an example of how this plays out. And then they use those ideas to solve a problem and present that idea to the class. So this is an example using a novel study of the book Holes. Okay, so the class starts with generating a list of nouns. Students draw 3 nouns and they can choose which one they want to use. So for example, if the group chose the word dog, they generated characteristics of dogs. So friendly, loyal, exercises, they're playful. And then they relate those characteristics to situations in the story. And so if we're talking about Stanley in the story, Stanley can dig holes with his friends to be friendly. Stanley is loyal to his friends. Stanley thinks of digging holes as his new Get in Shape program, or Stanley makes a game out of digging holes. And so they focus on that problem in that story, and then they present their ideas to that class. So this one's really focused on forcing associations between things that don't often relate, and so that's really that flexible thinking. And then Jenny shared some of her favorites. This is probably one of my favorite strategies from the book. It's called the Back to the Future letter. When we were creating choice boards for gifted learners during NTI, I used this one a lot on our choice boards. This one targets flexibility, and it has students imagine different scenarios. And so in this strategy, students pretend that they can time travel. They find a letter that was written in the past. This letter can be teacher created, or my favorite is to actually use primary source documents, especially in social studies, so that they're actually responding to an actual letter. So then they write responses about what was in the past, what is now, and what they think will be. And so how this might play out, for example, if you're studying the Industrial Revolution, they might find a letter that explains why people migrated from farms to mill life in the cities. And then students write back about the situation that occurred in the past during the Industrial Revolution. They apply that then to our current time and how migration shows up now. And then they project future migration, maybe in 2010, 25 years down the road. I know I had one on the high school choice board from the fall where students found Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from a Birmingham jail. And so you might have them write about what's going on at that time period, apply it to what's going on today and how that letter relates to what he was talking about at the time he wrote it, and then how it might apply in the future. And so found letters can be generated by teachers. Another way is to involve the class in writing those letters, or my favorite is to use primary source documents.
One thing we haven't said today, and we've said it all week, but these ideas need to be kept in context, because I know every one of us can think of a kid who could take these and go crazy with them. The point is to be creative and critical, so you've got to keep it within the realm of the context. So if you're writing, I'm going to use ELA because that's my go-to. If you're writing a realistic fiction, you can't have someone zoom in on a broom, because we all know that isn't real. So there are constraints to this. So make sure you're kind of keeping it within the context.
All right, so we're going to pause for a minute to share any ideas that you thought of how you might use this in your classroom. If you click back over to the same Jamboard and just go over a couple slides, there are sticky notes for generate and elaborate, connect and solve, or back to the future. So we'll give you a couple minutes to add some ideas there. Oh, somebody's already in there adding ideas. I love it.
Yay, it's JJ. Go JJ. Oh, excuse me.
We have one in the text box that she said she did something similar with Among the Hidden, which I love that book series. She wrote a letter about why the population law was made, and students then had to respond back. Some of the kids actually did research about population laws in other countries. I love that.
That is a really good one.
And the thing I like about this strategy is, like, I think a lot of times writing back to the future is really cool for kids, but then it really extends the rigor when they have to now apply it to what's going on in present day, and then also use what's happening today to predict how that might play out 5, 10, 50 years from now.
Also, if you're not familiar with Jamboard, I did see someone must have tried to use their finger or their mouse. You can actually use a tablet and draw. So it's a really great tool. I saw someone say, "Ooh, I could have them draw something." You can literally do that. And if they have a tablet, they can use their finger. Or I went out and bought a cheap stylus at the Dollar General store, and they work pretty good. And then, of course, you could go extreme and buy an Apple Pencil and use your Apple and do all of it. You can go all in or just a little in with Jamboard.
Oh, somebody mentioned using tweets for the Back to the Future. Especially, like, I was thinking, yeah, like better engagement and giving kids some choice about the format. I like that.
Me too.
All right, ready to move on?
Yep.
All right, here we go.
Okay, so when I was picking the strategies that I wanted to do for the presentation, I tried to choose the ones with my teacher brain on, like the ones that could take like simple little tweaks of what a lot of us already do in the classroom, or could be easily applied, on a daily basis. So, for example, the KWW chart is just a simple adaptation of the KWL chart. So instead of doing know what you want to know and learn, what do you want to learn, it's more about what the kids wonder. So you're kind of tapping into their own personal interests. So basically, this one targets fluency and imagination. I like the idea of using it like a pre-assessment. So what do you know? And then having the what you want to know and the wonder kind of lead them into extending their learning. So on the next slide, it's just one example of what you could do. Lindsay, you want to tap to the next one for me?
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. So, for example, say we're reading Percy Jackson. I love that book series. And beforehand, you just ask them, you know, what do you want? What do you already know about Greek mythology to kind of tap into their background knowledge? And then maybe after reading for just a little bit, you ask them to kind of add on to it. I know there was this old science strategy called the line of learning that we learned a long time ago when we were first starting to teach. And so you just add to it. So at this point, what do you want to know? And then later, what do you wonder? So that you can encourage them to kind of explore that idea that they have, like in an independent project or something like that. Now, the second strategy that I'm going to present is one of those product ideas that you could add to your toolbox as a teacher. So this one targets fluency and originality, and it's trading cards. And so I have my little teacher here, and she said, I want you all to be thinking about the information, how you want to present your independent study. And the little girl's like, I really love trading cards or Pokemon cards. Could I use something like that? So it's just allowing them to do something creative and go more in depth with the topic. There is a link to readwritethink.org because it is an electronic trading card creator. So you could have them even during NTI. That could be a product choice if you were doing like a PBL or an independent study project.
And those can be printed out. I know when I was teaching third grade, our informational writing, they put it into trading cards, and I let each of them print out like 3 of them, and they were able to trade with their class. So those can be printed out after they type them. Pretty cool.
Right. And you can have, like, if you're in class, you can have them physically, like, take trading cards and adapt them and add stuff to them. Or you can have them do, like, this or slides or anything like that to create their trading cards. So some examples, like I said, with ELA and mythology, you could use that example, too, of having them create trading cards of gods, goddesses, or you can also have them use like abstract symbols, and that could be part of their trading cards. So to add some more like artistic element to it as well. You could do like with math, you could do any math concept really with trading cards and for them to illustrate what they know and understand. Same thing with science, social studies. There's another example I said, like astronomy. And the only reason I said that one is because on the student example, one of my 4th grade groups, they like really were engulfed and were so excited about it. So we created trading cards with that set, the whole solar system, astronomy, everything outside of the Milky Way, that kind of thing. So those are just some examples of trading cards. And like I said, you could use it with basically anything. It could be a product choice. Now, on my last slide, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, Tiffany, thank you for sharing that, because I think that could be really great for kindergarten at the beginning of the year for them to make alphabet trading cards where they do the letters and a picture on them.
I love that. That's awesome. So on the next slide, which Michelle kind of took us right into that, on the Jamboard, you can share like any ideas that you have, because then anybody can go back to that Jamboard and remind you of that idea that you could use in your classroom. So it's on, I believe, the 7th and 8th slide is the KWW chart and trading cards, so ways that you could use those in your classroom. So I think we have a couple minutes, so I'll just give you a couple minutes to
Mm-hmm.
add anything you want to add to that.
We do spend a lot of time talking about the content areas, and I see that JJ's joined me, so she's always a reminder of our special areas teachers. So keep in mind, I think you're the experts, so I love that JJ's throwing out some ideas as well, because I know she's a phenomenal drama teacher. So Spanish teachers and all those folks we don't address, you can do some of these. And if you ever need help with that, feel free to email us and go back here. But you all are the content experts there. And we try to mainly stick with our 4 academic content areas. Or I guess there's more than 4. I shouldn't even say that.
And a lot of these strategies are cool ways for you to collaborate with those special areas too, because I mean, if you think about the trading card ones, I mean, that would be a great cross-curricular. You could get other special areas involved too to help, work on the project.
Oh, levels of government. There's some good answers. Informational writing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at multiplication. That's cool. Oops.
Ooh, I love all your all's participation today. It makes me happy.
It does make me happy too.
Okay, and then this slide, if you've been with us the last couple of days, I've talked about this, about how you could take these strategies and you could create things like choice boards that will service your creative students, but this would also service your specific ELA students. It would also help you with your general intellect, because you're giving them choice and you're giving them all these options of how they could use these strategies to show their learning. And I made this one pretty general. So like you could use it with small reading groups. You could use it with, book clubs, pull out groups, to add that choice and to give them some creative solutions.
And I want to give a shout out to Mark too. He's helping. I think he's honest about high school and teaching economics. I know that was not one class I enjoyed, but if you had incorporated some of these creative strategies, I agree with him in saying what a phenomenal way to try to make it a little more engaging. And I think you might get kids who would really take off and enjoy. So Mark, great suggestion, and bringing in some high school perspective.
And as always, just to kind of start to wrap up, just remember that if you've only attended one session from, 12 to 3, just make sure you come back for a second session so you could get your credit. Make sure you fill out a walk-in sign-in sheet if you did not sign up on PD Central. Here's our Twitter. We love Twitter. We love to tweet. We love to see your tweets. So if you use the hashtag GiftedJCPS, we would love to hear some of your takeaways, light bulbs, ideas, thoughts from the conference or the institute. And then finally, you have your feedback form. So if you are finished for today, please go on and do that feedback form to help us better do whatever we're going to do in the future with PD and things for you. And if you still have one more session you're going to call in this afternoon, then you don't have to fill it out until after you're done with calling.
And you will. We had questions about PD Central. So yes, there will be the normal PD Central evaluation form. So we've got a lot of emails about this. So it's going to take several days for attendance to show up on PD Central, because we're having to take attendance virtually versus turn in a sign-in sheet and get immediate. So just hang tight. Nothing is wrong if it's showing that your attendance hasn't been recorded yet. Give it to Ben next week, and I would say it probably be up. And then, yes, make sure you fill out the PD Central evaluation so that your credit shows up.
Lindsay, I'm so glad you said that.
I've gotten a lot of emails.
I've gotten a lot of emails. So we only have one clerk, and then I'm going to help with attendance after this is over. So just kind of be patient. I'm telling most people in my email, give us a week. And Lindsay did say that. And then if you're still not showing up, go ahead and email our office and myself, and we'll make sure you get your credit. I promise.
We'll stick around for a couple minutes if anyone has specific questions or anything. And then we're all headed to call-in session as well.
Thanks,
Thank
Kate.
you all for coming.
Okay,
That's nice.
it's
I'm
ornery
looking
hour.
forward to working with you this year.
It's
Nice.
my dog a turd, so my camera's been off because I have to keep getting up and chasing him from eating pillows. But this was
Kate
great.
at
Thank you so
Mazik,
much.
you guys. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. All righty.
Well, if any of you watched my video at all, like I'm like constantly like looking back at Peyton, like, Peyton, I can hear your stuff.
Well, you told me she was staring at you. I would kill that child. I'd be like, little girl. That's
She
funny.
did. When I was reading from the dive book, she stood there for like 5 minutes, and I was like,